All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the 49ers and their win over the Bears. We do have a couple of comments in the chat from Anthony Manzano. He says, first question is, are there any defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators in college or not that you see becoming head coaches in the NFL but doing the same job in the NFL? That, not entirely sure. He also said, so they don't have to deal with recruiting because I'm hearing from my side as a Hurricanes fan that both Lance Guidry and Shannon Dawson are looking to leave possibly for the NFL. I mean, I think that might go for more than just them too because of what's going on there. That's just becoming too much. But that I'll have to look more into. Because really, I mean, for me, I'm just focusing on, offensive coordinators in the NFL and, some guys that were out of coaching this year, like Mike Vrabel. Well, Mike Vrabel's on coaching staff with is on the Browns coaching staff, but him, Belichick, even Pete Carroll maybe, they might want to get back into the ring and coach a team next year. So that's what I'm focused on. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens there. But anyways, I wanted to get into talking about the 49ers and their win over the Bears. So the 49ers looked like the 49ers. Now, it was going up against a team in the Bears that fired their head coach, and that really showed. I think people thought, well, the Bears fired Matt Eberflus. Now, it's going to be one of those things where the team plays really good and maybe wins the game. But that did not happen. The 49ers dominated this game from start to finish. The Bears got shut out 24-0 in the first half. They did look better in the second half. But, that's kind of been the Bears as of late. Some games they don't look good in the first half, and then in the second half they look better. But Caleb Williams got knocked around in this game by the Niners defense. They did not have Nick Bosa in this game, of course. 7 sacks in this game by the 49ers defense. The Bears, they need to get the right head coach in place for next year. Second of all, they need to improve this offensive line because Caleb Williams is getting hit way too much. He's getting hit way too much. And you do not want him getting hurt because we saw what happened with Andrew Luck when the injury started to stack up. Now, this is only Caleb Williams' first year in the NFL, but you don't. And it was the same thing with Joe Burrow when he first came into the league. He was taking too many hits, and he got hurt because of it. You don't want that happening to Caleb Williams. So they need to improve that offensive line. But like I said, the 49ers, they looked more like the 49ers. Brock Purdy had a great performance. Nice bounce-back game. 20-25 for 325 yards. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Isaac Orendo. The 49ers just seem to produce running backs. 15 carries for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Patrick Taylor also had a touchdown. Orendo actually got hurt in this game, so we'll keep an eye on his status going forward because they do have a quick turnaround. They do play on Thursday against the Rams, which is a big game. George Kittle, bounce-back game for him. 6 receptions for 151 yards. Juwan Jennings, 7 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Orendo also had 50 yards receiving. Deebo Samuel, a quiet day, 2 receptions for 22 yards. Also had 13 rushing yards as well. But yeah, you had 3 sacks by Gross Matos. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. Leonard Floyd had a couple of sacks. Malik Collins had a sack in this game. The Niners defense was all over the Bears. And then for Caleb Williams, he had 2 touchdowns in this game, only threw for 134 yards. Bears really didn't run the ball. They only had 68 yards on the ground. D.J.Moore, 6 receptions for 49 yards. Rome Odunze had 4 for 42 and 2 touchdowns. So a nice game for him. Caleb Williams did lose a fumble in this game. Bears defense only 1 sack of Brock Purdy, and they dropped to 4-9 on the season. And the 49ers get to 6-7. And the Bears now have lost. They haven't won a game since October 13th. So in nearly 2 months, they haven't won a game. I don't know if they're going to win another game. I don't know. They could, but at one point they were 4-2. But since then, they have now lost 7 in a row. 7 straight games they have lost. It's been a tough stretch for them. They were competitive against their 3 division rivals, but against the Niners, they just had no chance. And the Niners were, a little ticked off with how these last couple weeks have gone, on the road against the Packers and against the Bills, having 30-plus points dropped on you the last 2 weeks. And this was a get-right game for them. And I did go from taking the Bears to the Niners because I was like, the Niners got to bounce back at some point. And they did. And now you got a big game on Thursday with the Rams. That's a big game for both teams. You got the Seahawks, who are in first place right now. Both teams are trying to keep pace with them. The Niners are not done yet. But, the Rams are in a better position right now than the Niners are. So, you got to hope that the Seahawks slip up. They do play the Packers on Sunday Night Football. So, the Packers are coming off of a loss. So maybe, even if whoever loses on Thursday, if the Seahawks lose, then, you don't lose ground on them. But the Niners, they got to hope that they get some of their guys back on. If they can get Nick Bosa back, that would be huge. And we'll see what happens with Garendo. But, it's amazing, though, how they just continue to produce running backs. I mean, obviously Christian McCaffrey came over via trade, but you had Jordan Mason, who was doing well. You had Garendo. I mean, you even go back to when they made it to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, you signed Raheem Mostert, and he came out of nowhere. It's just, even Elijah Mitchell, you go back to him, before all the injuries. He was good for them a few years ago. It just seems like they always have a good running back. So, hopefully Garendo is healthy for the game on Thursday. But, at least for 1 week, the Niners looked like the Niners again. I also wanted to acknowledge a couple of comments by Anthony in the chat. He said, Bill Belichick is out. He just recently signed a massive contract with North Carolina to be their head coach. Is that actually confirmed? I didn't hear. Unless that happened while I was doing the show. I saw that he was interested in the job. Yeah, I don't see anything. I don't see anything about that. It says, I see an article from Sports Illustrated that says why Belichick coaching North Carolina makes sense. Yeah, that hasn't happened yet. So we will see. But I don't think anything has actually. He said the same thing. CNN has an article from almost a day ago. Bill Belichick on UNC coaching job. We'll see. We will see. Also, he said, I was watching a segment with Redrafted the Draft where the Bears drafted their wide receiver in the top 3. Rich Eisen had them drafting Joe Alt. Yeah, I mean, they probably could have maybe used him if they would have, the Chargers took him. If they traded up and took him instead of Odunze. But that's what they're going to have to do. I think going into this draft, the Bears have to draft an offensive lineman. I think that's what they got to do. You got to improve this offensive line next year. You got to protect your own quarterback. And then he also said, Anthony in the chat, who is the best overall tight end in the league? Not just purely receiver, purely a blocker, one that's a hybrid. I like Kelsey, but he doesn't really block. Kelsey does block. I guess as the better overall tight end that can do everything is probably Kittle. Because, when the 49ers love to run the football, he's blocking. Yeah, I would probably say Kittle as of right now, but, overall, career-wise, it's definitely been Kelsey. So, but both are very good tight ends. Brock Bowers, though, he's going to be the number 1 tight end when Kelsey and Kittle hang it up. He looks like he's going to be a really good player for the Raiders. So at least the Raiders have him. But, back to this game, though. The Bears... Yeah, I saw a TikTok talking about how Matt Eberflus was not the problem. I think it's kind of similar to Robert Saleh with the Jets. Maybe defensively, because the Bears' defense, is pretty good. But, Matt Eberflus was a problem. Was he the whole problem? No, but he was definitely a big problem. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't think... I thought the Bears would finish with a decent record. They got 4 wins right now. it's just he was one of the reasons why I didn't think they were going to do that good. And the defense just got absolutely shredded by the Niners. And it doesn't really surprise me because, look, the Niners have that pedigree. They're a team that's got their backs against the wall right now. They're ticked off about what happened these last 2 weeks. This was a get-right game for them, and they delivered. And they're fighting for their lives right now. They are fighting for their playoff lives. And even without Christian McCaffrey, without Jordan Mason, without Brandon Ayuk, without Nick Bosa, they still have a chance to try to get into the dance. And it's going to be very tough. I mean, they got a tough game against the Rams. Look what the Rams just did to the Bills. And, the Rams already beat the Niners. Now, the Niners, they didn't have George Kittle. They didn't have Deebo Samuel in that game. They're going to have them for this game. It's going to be a fun game. It's really going to be fun to watch that. Looking forward to it. But at least for this week, the Niners were able to get back on track. Anthony also in the chat said, when Christian McCaffrey decides to retire, who do you think is going to be the running back that replaces him as the best overall running back in the league where he can block, catch, and run? Well, it could be a running back that hasn't gotten drafted yet. I mean, maybe we'll see how the running backs look that come out of this draft class. I mean, I think behind McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. You got Saquon Barkley. Also, people were complimenting Bijan Robinson on, blocking and pass protection as well on Sunday against the Vikings. You could also look at Bijan. Maybe Bijan becomes the number one guy. I mean, I think right now it's Saquon and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry obviously is not a receiving back, but, I mean, Derrick Henry's had an unbelievable season as well. I think in terms of long-term, because, Bijan, this is his second season. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's him. But I think, you still got Saquon and Derrick Henry. Well, Derrick Henry might retire, I don't know when Derrick Henry's planning on retiring. Definitely not anytime soon. But we'll see. I look at Bijan. Bijan I don't think is a bad pick long term. But we'll see how many years Saquon and Derrick Henry have left. Because in their situations, they definitely have added more years to their career. Derrick Henry is in his 30s. Saquon is 27. So Anthony also says the issue with both Ezekiel and Saquon is, can you trust them to stay healthy? Well, I mean, Ezekiel Elliott is not a top running back anymore. So if you mean Derrick Henry, yeah. But they both stayed healthy this year. And then he said, when I look at Robinson, I don't see McCaffrey. He reminds me a little bit of Deuce McAllister and Ricky Williams. Interesting. All right, well, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'll have my power rankings for tomorrow. So make sure to tune in for that. And make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.